We're going to welcome Miss Wendy. Hi, Miss Wendy. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How about yourself?
Good, doing well. Thank you so much for interviewing with us. We're going to go ahead. I'm going to read a disclaimer and then we're going to hop right into the interview, okay?
Okay.
All right. So, the information provided in this video is for research and educational purposes only and is not intended to serve as a personal health care from a licensed doctor. In addition, the lay viewer should be aware or beware of misinterpreting this material, which is prepared and edited for people in which strokes have affected. Does Stroke Life Perspective have your permission, Wendy, to use this interview on YouTube and its Facebook group page to encourage other people?
Absolutely.
All right, awesome. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Miss Wendy. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Wendy.
Uh, not much to tell. I mean, I work a lot. Um, just turned 45, have kids, lots of foster kids. Just not much. It's pretty much
Awesome.
just boring as hell and everything like that. So
So you are a mom then. You've got some kiddos, sounds like.
I have two
Um,
biological and 17 foster.
Wow, 17.
Yep.
You are a pretty amazing person. That's
Thanks.
awesome. What are their age ranges?
My youngest is 22. That's my biological son, Bodie. And my oldest is 38, and that's my foster son, Lewis.
Wow,
Yep.
wow. That keeps you hopping, I'm sure.
Yeah. And I had Lewis when he was like 16, so it's been a while.
Wow, wow.
Yep.
Well, let's dive right in. Let's talk about your stroke. So, when did your stroke happen? Who was around you at the time? What exactly happened?
Okay, well, I started getting a headache. I had the day off of work, thankfully, and I started getting a headache, so I went and took some Advil. About an hour later, I started feeling drunk, like really drunk, like I had drank probably like a pitcher of margarita or a whole bottle of vodka or something. I was slurring my words, my head was really woozy, and my leg was really stuck trying to get it to move, but I didn't know anything about it. Never knew anything about it. So I waited, and then I told my husband at the time to take me to the hospital. I was actually talking to my martial arts instructor on FaceTime, and he actually saw me go from being perfectly fine to having my stroke. And he's the one that said, when, go to the hospital. So, yeah.
Wow. So
So I was
then what happened
talking to him.
next?
I went to the hospital and I sat there for 9 hours until they decided to get a neurologist to come and take a look at me. And he's like, oh, yeah, she's having a stroke. So didn't get any of the shots, anything like that.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow. So, because I know my husband was in ICU and had his stroke in ICU where they were supposed to be monitoring him closer, and he did not get the shot either. So I don't know if do you know what determines whether one would get the shot or not?
I believe it's like 1 or 2, possibly pushing it 3 hours from when it starts to when you can have it. Um, like my sister, when she had her stroke, I told her, I said, you're having a stroke. Tell them you want the shot ASAP. So when she got to the ER, she told them that she wanted it then. She doesn't have any deficits. She has nothing wrong with her.
Wow.
Yeah. Otherwise, because her stroke was identical to mine.
And what kind of a stroke did you have?
Ischemic.
It was an ischemic. And
Oh
do
yeah.
you know like what part of your brain that it affected?
I honestly don't remember. I just know that I have the Grand Canyon through my brain, but it doesn't affect me except the moving of my arm and moving of my leg. But it's way better than it was, so I'm not really concerned.
So then you were hospitalized, correct?
Yeah, I was hospitalized for 3 weeks and PT. And they told me when I was doing PT just to move the piece of paper on the table. So basically slide it around. They wouldn't let me walk. It took him like 6 or 7 days to get an AFO because I have drop foot. So they wouldn't want to walk with me or anything. So the day before Christmas, I checked myself out and said, I'm not doing it anymore because I'm not wasting my time or money or anything to be sitting here doing nothing. And so I checked myself out and did 99% of my rehab with me and my sons and my husband at the time.
Wow. So you did your hospital stay. They medically got you in a safe place medically and stabilized, and then you checked yourself out.
Yeah, I went against doctor's orders.
Wow.
But
Wow.
because of the fact that they weren't helping me at all, I felt like they were actually hindering me because they locked me in my bed. They wouldn't let me use the restroom on my own. They wouldn't let me do anything on my own. So I said, no, I'm not doing it. And so I left. Christmas Eve, I left the hospital. That was my Christmas present to myself. But
Wow.
in the 3 weeks that I was there, the day after I had my stroke, I turned my room, my hospital room, into my office, and was still working at my business while I was in the hospital when they let me out of my bed.
Wow. That's phenomenal. That is, that's a big deal. Wendy, some people, a tragic thing like this happens to them and they really go into a deep depression or,
Oh, I know.
they're affected. So tell me about that. Is that something you ever experienced?
For the first like 6 months, I was depressed. I just didn't understand why, because I was very healthy. Um, did martial arts for 25 years beforehand. I own my own business and I was doing really well at that. And it was just more of a, oh, poor me thing, So that was the problem. And then I snapped out of it. I
Wow.
had to because I knew that if I didn't, I'd go into deeper depression. And I don't believe in feeling bad about stupid stuff that happens. And I personally think this is just a dumb bad luck.
So did they ever find out what caused your stroke?
It's hereditary. My neurologist actually has a paper in one of the medical journals of my family because of my sister, my dad, his dad, three of his sisters all had strokes. Yeah. And so, it was all the same place. I mean, all of our strokes were identical. And so we're just miswired somewhere. So,
Wow.
uh,
And that's teaching me something new because I had no idea that strokes could even be hereditary.
exactly. And that's what my neurologist wrote this huge paper for, is because it was told that it's not hereditary. And my sister and I were on the phone because she lives in Georgia, or she lives in North Carolina. And we were both on the phone with my neurologist and her neurologist. And we were both like, that's BS, because clearly if you look at our, MRIs and everything, it's identical. So we got my dad's. Obviously, we couldn't get my grandpa's or anything like that. So, but we got my dad's, and yeah, it's all identical.
Wow. Wow. What did the neurologist say?
He was pretty impressed. I mean, for what you could be impressed of, he was. He was just like, I've never heard of this before. And so it was a pretty big deal, I guess. I'm like, whatever.
Wow.
It's a brain thing. Whatever.
Have you ran into anybody else that has been in that type of situation where there's hereditary strokes?
No,
Wow.
no, nobody's ever put two and two together yet. So I haven't.
Wow.
And that's how come we were such an enigma.
Yeah, you're the first one I've heard of that
Yeah.
happening, and that's interesting. That would be I think a fun thing to dive into as far as doing more research on. That's interesting.
I think it
Um,
would, but at the same time, I'm like, yeah, I'm good.
Right.
I've lived it enough.
Yeah. So have you only had the one stroke?
Yes. I had one stroke. I had a TIA about 7 months later. I was in the hospital for the weekend, and literally all it did was make me super tired. I mean, it was like trying to crawl out of a hole again. But
Wow.
it was because of stress, because of the stroke, because of stress. So I just refused to do it again.
So were you affected cognitively at all?
No,
No.
nope,
So no,
just a little
no.
bit of speech, and my left side is affected.
Okay. Wow. So just a little bit of the physical piece, no
Yeah,
cognitive.
no, I'm not nearly as fast as I used to be, like speech wise and everything. I'm not nearly as fast. And my mom's like, "Oh yeah, now you're human," because I used to speak really fast. And my ex-husband tells me all the time that, you don't sound any different except your voice is a little bit higher.
Really?
And but to me, I sound like I slur very much.
See, if I wouldn't have known, if I wouldn't have met you how I met you, I would have never, just talking to you right now, I would have never known. Never.
Yeah.
Not
Well,
at all.
to me, because I was around myself for 41 years, so it's a little bit different. My sons can tell the difference, definitely. Because I raised them absolutely 100% myself. So, um, it was one of those things that they were like, yeah, I can tell mom's a little bit, has a little bit of issues here and there, but I don't have nearly the amount that they said I would. I wasn't supposed to walk, talk, or use my arm again.
Wow. You're a miracle, girl.
No, I'm just really, really, really stubborn.
That's what you told me before.
I'm really hell bent on not being bedridden.
You
I
know,
will not let people wait on me hand and foot.
wow.
You know,
That's awesome though that you have that determination. Again, I think some people, these type of traumatic things happen and then they go into a hole or they get depressed or they kind of give up and
oh,
the
I can totally understand that, because when I first had my stroke, and I know a lot of it had to do with the fact that it was my stroke that did it, because ever since I got on duloxetine, the pill, my moods regulated hugely. And so I know that there's an issue with that in it, because I was very depressed, very weepy, like I'll watch a stupid commercial and start crying. Um,
right.
yeah, I'm a lot more emotional than I used to be, because my ex-husband used to tell me I'm like a Vulcan. I just go along with life and just don't do anything when it comes to emotions. I don't like emotions. Emotions are bad. But now I have a lot more emotion. But it is what it is.
You know,
So
and I've heard that. Even with the interview with Erica, I did an interview with her and that went really great. She's an
awesome.
awesome woman.
I
But
know she is.
But yeah, she also said that she was a little bit more emotional. I've noticed that in my own husband, that he's a little bit
Yeah.
more emotional. So I'm assuming that it depends on what area of the brain maybe that is affected. Why?
Um, I think a lot of it has to do with that. I have a lot of residual stuff that I don't understand why I would, because of the stroke that happened after the stroke. But I know it's all brain stuff. Like, I used to be a good sleeper. Now, mm-mm.
Really?
Now, if I go to sleep on my own, I will sleep maybe an hour, maybe, if I'm lucky. If I take my pills to go to sleep, and literally they're just muscle relaxers, but they give them to me because they put me to sleep, I'll sleep maybe 4 or 5 hours. That's it. But I used to sleep 8, 10 hours a day. I mean, that was programmed, especially with having so many kids. I need to sleep. But, so that's one thing that I've definitely noticed. There's other things too, but, it's just, that's a big one to me, is because I'll notice after like 5 or 6 days where I'm getting really worn out easily because I don't get the sleep I used to. And I'll have to take it easy. Like, there are times when I first had my stroke that I'd have to take down days where I literally just sit there on my butt, watch TV all day. Don't move, maybe get up and use the restroom, but that's about it. Everything, I'd call my kids or I'd have my husband do it for me. But now I'm fine. I just go. I walk like 3 or 4 miles a day, you know?
Wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing. So for the audience listening, then maybe having days where you're good, like you're trucking, doing what you do, and then you could have another day, like the next day, maybe even that things are just like I'm done. I just have to rest. Is that pretty common?
Yeah. Not so much now because we're three years out. But the first like year I'd say was really common. Like I go like 5 or 6 days and then have to take a day. I woke up this morning and my hip was killing me for no reason. I didn't fall on it. I didn't do anything. I didn't snap it. I didn't pop it or anything. It just hurts. And so I'm like, who knows why? So tonight I'm not walking normally, but
And that's the hip that was affected, the side that
yep.
was affected.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just one of those
So
weird things.
so are you on medications, a lot of medications now?
No, I noticed when I had my stroke that I had a really high blood pressure, like 180 over 150 something. My blood
Mhm.
sugar was really out of whack. It was almost like 600. Um, my cholesterol was really, really, really bad. My um my pulse rate was really, really high. And then after I was in the hospital for like 2 days, it all regulated, went back to normal.
Wow.
My sister's was the same way.
Wow.
Like
That's
something
amazing.
just spiked it all.
Wow. That's amazing. And I mean, I've shared in my video, my husband had untreated high blood pressure and high blood sugar prior to the stroke, and then COVID came, and then that's what caused his stroke. Blood sugars now, like we have to be really careful with that for the blood pressure and the blood sugars, because I mean, just like the other day, I took his blood pressure. It was like 160 over 115, and he's on 6 different blood pressure medications. So
Wow.
it's pretty scary. So how do you feel like the stroke affected your family or your children?
Um, it made it really difficult when it first happened, but now it's just like old hat. I mean, they just like, we'll be walking somewhere. They'll go a little bit slower because I used to be the fastest walker in the family. And so now they have to slow down for me. And they're always like, come on, mom, But it's just changing a little bit. I mean, it wasn't a big deal. It was to begin with because they were more concerned about the fact that I'd, cry at the drop of a hat or get upset about something. But now it's just like, she had a stroke and this is her.
Right.
Yeah.
So do you feel that it did any type of effect on you spiritually, or do you have a spiritual journey at all?
I'm a lot nicer person, a lot nicer. I am a very much nicer. Don't know why, but I am. Um, I have no patience though. I will tell you that. My patience is nil. It's gone. Um, I get I go from 0 to 60 in like 3 seconds when it comes to having patience and but um honestly it's just me. I'm a lot more concerned about people when it used to be IGAF before. I didn't care because if it didn't affect me, it wasn't my problem. That's how I looked at it back then. Now it's there's an issue. If somebody's having an issue, there's an issue and we need to fix it or something.
So it kind of
That's
give you a different perspective on life, do you feel?
I think it gave me a different perspective on life, but I also think it just gave me a different perspective on thinking about people in general. My big thing now is you got to be nice to everybody because you don't know what they're dealing with. You just don't. That's a
That's
big one.
that is huge. That is huge. And, you know, that's, I know even when I was raising my kids, I used to always tell them, you know, you don't know what people are going through.
Yeah, I know. I did too, but didn't, you know, you can say it and say it and say it and not mean it. Try to make your kids a better person. That's great. But they're like I was, you know, they're gaff. They don't care. But now, ever since my stroke, they've been more conscious about stuff like that. They've been so much different when it comes to looking at people's point of views and looking at the way people act and how they react to things. And, you know, so it's definitely changed everybody for the better. I mean, I used to be married to a cop, so that came from that too. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Okay.
and
So what team, do you have a team of doctors that follow you still since discharge? Like, do you have a neurologist or do you
yeah,
have
I
CP?
do. My neurologist is in Arizona still, because I haven't gotten one up here because I like my neurologist. So I go down there every 6 months. Um, my primary is here, and she pretty much goes by what I need her to go by. If I ask for something, she'll get it for me. You know, that's how she is. So,
Okay. So I, you know, because this part of the world, as far as the stroke journey, is very new for me. And my husband just had his stroke in November. When he was discharged, they didn't even say anything about following up with a neurologist. So, do you think that that is something that every person with that has a stroke should have, or what are your thoughts?
I think everybody that has a stroke has a TIA, even has a, traumatic brain injury, because that's what my son had, is a TBI. I think everybody that has something to do with the brain should have a neurologist in their back pocket, because you never know when you're going to need it. So it's just one of those things to where you really need to self look at, do you think he needs a neurologist? Do you think you need that extra opinion on what's going on with him? You know, because he could say for a million times, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. You could say, okay, he's saying he's fine, he's fine, he's fine, but the neurologist could give him something that would make him way more fine, you know, or kind of explain something that would help him a little bit more.
So when you were discharged from the hospital, were you on more medications then? And then did you titrate off, or have you just always came out of, you know, the hospital? Well, because you left on your own.
Yeah. I was on probably like 14 or 15 different medications. Now I'm on 3.
Wow, good for you. So
Thanks.
what were those medications for? And like what were they helping with?
They said it was for high blood pressure, high cholesterol, water retention, my thyroid, all sorts of stuff. But then
Wow.
when I was looking into it and trying, because of side effects, because I felt like I was drugged. I have a really bad reaction to medication. And so, like they would come to give me my medication. I'd be like, no, what are you giving me? And so I'd look up the stuff that they're giving me. And before I even left the hospital, I dropped like 5 or 6 of them. But then when I got home, I dropped more because there's no need for them. I mean, just taking pills in general is bad for you. So I'm not going to, you know, have a mobile pharmacy in my house.
So the ones that you take now are, what do you take now, if you don't mind me asking?
Lisinopril, hydrochlorothiazide, and duloxetine.
Okay. Okay. Wow. Well, that's amazing, that you've been able to kind of titrate yourself off of the that's a lot of meds. I know my
Yeah.
husband, he's probably on about that much now
Yeah.
that I think about it. So
Yeah.
that's
And when you sit there and think about all the stuff that they gave you after you had this episode compared to what you had before, why? Why so many? I mean, nothing's going to stop if you have another one. It
were
doesn't
you
matter.
were you on medications prior to the stroke?
No, I wouldn't take them they wanted me to take some stuff, and I was like, no, I'm not going to.
Mhm. Yeah,
So,
I know my husband had, he had the untreated high blood pressure and high blood sugar and was supposed to take all that stuff prior. And so I know when his hit, it was because I had COVID, then he got it from me. We were both hospitalized. He ended up having this stroke in, ICU. But I kind of think that even if COVID wouldn't have hit him, he was headed in the direction of a stroke anyway, because like you, his blood sugars, I mean, running up in 600s and 700s,
that's
I don't know
ridiculous.
how he was surviving, it was crazy. So that's something that, I know he has dealt with. So do you feel like, do you feel like you have a pretty good support system
Oh,
around?
I have a very good support system. If I need something, I'll get it. I mean, between the doctors, my kids, my ex-husband, I mean, I have a service dog, that I should never have gotten, but I did. And so, I mean, whatever I need, I get.
So talk about your service dog. Is that something is it one of the dogs that help to, because I know I own a special needs business, and we have had special dogs that are service dogs that can sense seizures coming. Um, it, is your dog an emotional support dog?
Is just basically, he can sense if my blood sugar goes up or if my blood pressure goes up or if I start sweating profusely or anything like that. He can sense it.
Wow, that's amazing. Did your insurance help pay for him?
Nope. $70,000 out of my pocket.
Wow.
And I actually rescued him and his sister from a friend of mine. And so I got him trained, and she was police dog trained and he is service dog trained.
So do you feel like he's been helpful for you?
Oh yeah. He Because there are days when like today, because of my hip, that I'll just tumble onto my butt. And if I'm nowhere around anything that I can grab, he'll come and rescue me. He'll stand there so I can grab him and push myself up on him.
Wow.
He's a
So
big boy.
that's another thing. What kind of dog is he?
A Belgian Malinois.
Wow. That's another thing I wouldn't have even thought about, is maybe having a service animal or dog to have for somebody that, has some of the challenges that you're talking about here.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, like when I first had my stroke, one of the first things that we did, because we lived in Arizona, so we lived in a big two-story house. My oldest son walked behind me and helped me get up and down the stairs probably 20, 30 times a day, just so I could conquer that. So I wouldn't be petrified of it, because most of the time I was in a wheelchair for the first month. But he would help me get up and down the stairs, and so that way I was able to do it in case anything happened. And then when we got Kai, that's one of the first things we started him on, is teaching him how to go up and down the stairs with me, so if anything happened, he could help.
Wow, that's awesome. So how long, because you said that it was your kids and your husband that helped with basically your rehabilitation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how long did it take you to get where you're at today?
3 years. I go to the gym every night. I exercise at home every night. Between running my business, working, and dealing with all the stuff I deal with, I exercise, I do everything, because I am not the type of person that can just sit around. It was hard enough when I first had my stroke. It was very difficult. But so it doesn't matter. I'm always, trying to better myself. My arm is being a little bit of a pain, and my walking, because my hip has been hurting, is more limpy than it usually is, but I am definitely way better than I was 6 months ago.
That's great. So what kind of exercises do you do to help strengthen the weaker parts of your body?
I do a lot of core exercises. I do a lot of planks. I do a lot of sit-ups. I do a lot of stuff like that. I also run on the treadmill at the gym. Um, just because I'm trying to get it to where my lower body works like it used to, or at least partially works like it used to. That's my theory. I just want to be able to move in case I need to.
Yeah, for sure. Wow. Um, okay. Well, do you feel like, and you know, I know a lot of people have strokes affect people so differently. I'm sure that even like your sister, maybe she has obviously different things going on because she was able to get the shot, right?
She does. She has a little bit of cognitive, when we call it, I mean, obviously stroke brain, because she'll like miss a few words here and there. Or she'll have to like stop and like search. You can see her eyes like searching for the word that she's trying to get. But other than that, she has all her, abilities. She has her legs, she has her arms. Nothing like that. I mean, she's a phlebotomist at work. She has to have that stuff. So
Wow. So then were you able to drive? How long did it take before you were able to drive, or are you driving, or do you
two
drive?
weeks,
2
two
weeks.
weeks. I own my own truck.
Wow. That's awesome. You really did bounce back quickly, and it sounds like, you
Well,
know,
I I guess the best way to put it is my family is a warrior family. We're not the type of people that sit around and wait for things to happen. We make them happen. My kids jokes they weren't raised, they were trained. Um, my husband and I taught martial arts for years. And so that's one of the things. But the kids that I have, there's no way in heck I could be sitting around on my butt being like, hey, can you do this for me? No, mom, it's right there. Get off your butt and do it. That's how they are. I didn't have any excuse to sit around. And if I did, it was because I really wasn't feeling well and they could see that I wasn't feeling well. And it was like, mom, just go to bed, or just, take it easy today or something like that. But I was never babied. I was never given anything. I had to work for everything. The only thing I can say was I was trying to hang a plant in the ceiling and I tried getting up on a chair. Well, that was a mistake. And I fell backwards and slammed my head into the ground, and they heard me from their rooms and they came running and I got screamed at. And I was like, I asked you guys for like a week to do this and you didn't. So I was going to do it myself. It was done in 30 seconds,
wow.
but but and so they don't do it anymore. If I really need something, I'll ask them and they'll get it done right then. But I didn't have much of a choice on getting better. I mean, that's exactly how I look at it. My boyfriend even laughs because his mom's brother, so his uncle, had a stroke, and a couple of other people he knows have had strokes, and he's like, I've never seen anybody bounce back like this. And it's like, you know me, I don't have the ability to not do this. I mean, I've known him for 30 years, so he knows me. you know it's how it is.
So do you feel like, I think that's amazing that, you have that drive and that determination, because I mean, like your boyfriend said, it's a lot of, like, you just don't see that a lot of times, and so that's awesome. And it sounds like you have a great support system. Do you
I
feel
do.
like the stroke affected you as far as your job or your work or anything? Like, I know you have mentioned how you had basically set your hospital room up as your office and you were going to town. Do you feel like it affected anything when it came to your work?
Yeah, it did. It really did. Because of my deficit on my left side, I couldn't type like I can't type like I used to. I used to be able to type 160 words a minute. Now I'm lucky if I can type 25 because it's only one-handed, but I'm training my arm to get better. Um, there was there was a time when I first had my stroke that I would be like, I don't have the energy to do this, even though I'd push myself through it to do it. I still felt like I didn't have the energy to do it. But now, I mean, I work a full-time job and I own 2 businesses. I work a lot, so that's just what I do.
That's kind of what I'm seeing too as I'm interviewing people. It seems like, you know, I think that Erica said it best when she said she was on a treadmill of life, just basically going, 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 and there
Yes.
was no breaks.
No, Miss Erica's right. She, that's what it feels like, is we're constantly going, 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 because there's no excuse and there's no reasoning why we shouldn't. I mean, I was a workaholic beforehand. And so just because of this, I'm not going to change. I'm going to be a workaholic. I'm going to push myself to get stuff done. I mean, Miss Erica has been hit by so many different things, but she proceed, her perseverance, she pushes through. It's a big deal, and that's all we can do.
Right. Have you had any other kind of health issues or anything that have come up after the stroke?
No,
No.
no, the
Wow.
doctors don't understand because I've dodged COVID like 6, 7 times. I've, the stuff that I have had. The only thing I can say I had is I got dizzy really bad one time and I broke my foot because I slipped over my dog. But, so there is that. But no, I'm fine. I mean, I've lost a ton of weight because I work out so much and everything else. I'm in probably some of the best shape I've been in since high school. So I mean, that's my push.
That's awesome.
I don't
That's
want to be like this for the rest of my life, and so I am pushing myself to be better.
Yeah. It sounds like you've really come a long ways too.
I have.
Yeah. And it
It took,
sounds like you haven't arrived, but you're not where you used to be.
no, but I also look at the fact that this is not me. I am not this person. I mean, I can understand the slower speech, the slurred, stuff like that. The limp, I don't care about the limp, but I would really like my arm back so I can do my own hair. um, just a few things here and there. But this isn't me. I don't just sit around and wait for stuff like this to get better. I push for it.
And just by you talking, people I think take for granted just the small things like what you just mentioned, brushing your own hair.
I brush my own hair, but because my left hand doesn't grasp right and it doesn't want to work, functionally, I can't put it up. I can't French braid my own hair like I used to. I can't do a lot of things like I used to. It took me probably the first night I came home from the hospital, I did the dishes. It took me 4 hours to do dishes. I had to relearn how to do dishes because the one hand just didn't want to work right. And so as it's progressively gotten better, I've gotten faster and stuff like that. But I mean, there's a way around everything. If I can figure out a way to do something easier for me, I'll figure it out.
Right, right. And I think that is probably another thing that a lot of people have to deal with when it comes to stroke is that you have to figure things out. I mean, you can't stop, you can't go back. You have to
No.
keep living life. And so you have to figure it out. I mean, and
One
so
of the,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
one of the first things that I was terrified of doing was taking a shower because I know the shower bottom is slippery and because I was not stable at all. Um, so I bought myself a shower chair, the stool, and it's awful. I hate them. And so I weaned myself off of that like about 3 or 4 weeks after I got it. And I went to one of our local stores and got one of those loofahs that sticks on the bottom of the tub and stand on that so I don't slip on my face. And there's always a way around it. Always.
Yeah.
I still change my own oil in my car. It's
Wow.
just it's just how we do things. I taught my son the other day how to change a tire because his he blew a tire on the freeway. So we had to learn how to do that on the fly.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah. And as I hear you talk, it just seems like the stroke didn't do anything but make you better. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a better person and I'm much more self-sufficient than I used to be. And I used to be very self-sufficient. I'm very stubborn. I'm very, very stubborn and I want to do things myself. But now I do it more my way to get it done the way I want it done, that I know I can do it. So it's taken care of, except hanging plants. I won't do that again.
Wow. Wow, that's really awesome. Well, so do you feel like one of the questions I've asked other people I've interviewed, um, are you at all fearful that it might happen again?
It's always in the back of my mind. I mean, it is, because I just don't want to go through it again. I don't want to have to kill myself to get back to where I am, because I'm tired, you know, but I will if I have to. I know people, my dad, my sister have had one stroke. All their, siblings and my grandpa had one stroke. But there's always that chance. And I do feel like maybe at some point it could happen, because I've known people that have had obviously more than one. But there's nothing I can do about it except take care of myself and try to do the best I can in that realm.
Right, right. And it sounds like you're doing just that. So that's awesome. Wow.
Thank you.
So what would you say to people that are maybe just entering this journey? Maybe they just had a stroke a month ago or a week ago or yesterday or even today. What would you say to them as they enter into this journey to encourage them?
I'll probably say the same thing that Miss Erica told me. Okay. When I first had my stroke, nothing you can do about it. It's the past. Just move forward from here and do the best you can. And don't give up on yourself, because that's when everything starts to go downhill. As soon as you give up on yourself, there's nothing left.
So how do you do that? How do you not give up on yourself?
Um, I, I'll be honest. I don't know. It's just in my personality. I won't give up on myself. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
I won't give up on my kids. I won't give up on anybody. I won't give up on them. It's because of the fact that, I see something better in me. I see something better in my kids. I see something better in my boyfriend, my ex-husband, whoever it is, than they do. So I'm not going to give up on them, because I may be the defining person that keeps them going through something.
that's right. That's right. And I think that's great advice, for the people that are going to be viewing your journey, your story, you know, just not to give up.
No.
And I've heard that a lot from other people too, just don't give up.
Well, one of the big things is, and I'll be honest, I have been very upset and annoyed by people that, you know, um, I guess the best way to put it is like, I can't walk, or I can't do this, or I can't do that. First of all, in my house, we're not allowed to say the C word. It's a 4-letter word. Because you can do anything you set your mind to do. That's my opinion. Except hanging plants. That was bad. um, and it just frustrates me that people give up on themselves so easily because something's difficult. This has been the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life. This has been the hardest thing that my kids have ever had to do so far. I mean, they're young, but even my foster kids, it's very difficult. My ex-husband took care of me, when he wanted to probably put his fingers around my throat, because I was just that much of a pain in the ass. But, you know, you need to really search deep within yourself to find how to do that for yourself, because nobody's going to do it for you.
Yep. That is so true. I'm just thinking about my husband because, there's times that he will do things for PT and OT and speech. And then when we're working together, it's like he doesn't always want to cooperate. So we feel in that, you got to do it. I can't do it. And I'm proud of him. Don't get me wrong. I think he's doing a fabulous job because he shouldn't be here. His whole brain was affected. And so,
That's good. I mean,
you know,
no, most of us shouldn't be here. Mine was a massive, massive stroke. They were surprised I lived through it. They were really surprised that I actually had a conversation through most of it. They were so thrown. They couldn't understand how I was so calm and everything else about it. It was one of those things. I mean, I did tons of stuff that day and trying to get stuff done. We were moving, so I was packing, I was doing all sorts of stuff, talking to my martial arts teacher. I did martial arts with him on FaceTime, so we could go over stuff. I did tons of stuff that day, even though I had a massive, massive stroke. And so they were just trying to figure everything out. But, it's one of those things where you can't be so down on yourself if you do have this. I mean, a lot of people look at it as like there's something wrong with me for having this. It's a brain thing. You can never, nobody can ever say that this is going to happen. Nobody can ever say this is not going to happen. I just tell people all the time, pay attention to what you're doing. Don't do something stupid. I mean, my kids are in great shape, but because of hereditary, they're severely in line for a stroke. And I've told them that, and they're terrified. But they know that with my perseverance and everything else, they'll be fine.
for sure. What would you say to the caregivers out there that are walking this journey with the stroke survivor?
Oh, patience. Just have patience, because a brain injury is a whole different entity. There's just nothing that you can say about a brain injury that you wouldn't, people just aren't going to understand.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I really, really appreciate you and your time today because I know you didn't have to do this. You didn't have to take your time out to meet with me.
You're
But
fine.
I do appreciate you and, your perseverance and determination. You are such a great example for others that it can be done, that you can recover, right?
Yes. I may not
Yeah.
be perfect, but it's better than it was, and that's all I care about.
And if you meet a perfect person, let me know. I've never met them.
Right? Yes.
But do you have any other closing comments? We're going to phase the interview out, but do you have anything else that you would like to say to your audience or, encourage them or any closing comments?
Probably my biggest one is just don't give up, because your body can do miraculous things. Your brain can do miraculous things. And when you start giving up on yourself, like I said earlier, is when everything's going to go wrong. And everything that you have worked your butt off to do is just going to go by the wayside.
Right. Well, Wendy, you look beautiful. You look great.
Thank
And
you.
I appreciate you so much for, again, taking time to interview. And I hope that your story will encourage other people to stay determined and, keep pushing. So thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. You take care of yourself and maybe we'll touch base. We're going to stay in contact.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you so much, Wendy.
You're welcome.